Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And Casen and I flipped on the Zoom, a little bit ago. And I gotta say, I love your look right now, man. I'm not really sure. Every time you've worn the Ohio State pullover on this here before, the Coca-Cola hat is doing it for me. I love that.
Yeah, and I got a little mustache going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Casen looks pretty cool right now. I'm not gonna lie. He does. If you're watching us on YouTube, I look exactly the same. So uh it wasn't until like in the last few weeks it was brought to my attention that like my mic covers my mouth and like bottom of my face a lot on our show, and it's like it's better for the quality of the show. But we're here on a normal day, normal for us anyway in terms of recording. We've got divisional round football we're going to open the show talking about. Of course, we're going to bring you of the weeks in the middle of the show, and I watched and completed Echo. I'm not sure how I did it. I'll be honest with you, Casen, and the listeners, but I completed it. We're going to talk about it, and I think, and I will say this: I think this is a show that warrants a non-spoiler as well, because I think some people will not may not check this out right away or not for a while. So that being said, divisional
we
round,
also
man. No, go
yeah
ahead.
we also do have a lot of news that came out, at least coaching and
Yeah,
stuff that we'll get into the last
literally
couple of days.
today
So
we're recording this
yeah.
on Thursday. It's going to be Friday before you hear this, and there's some stuff that dropped literally in the last few hours that we will definitely touch on. Unless you want to open with it right now, Casen.
I mean, we can we'll get into the divisional, and then we'll go in there.
Okay, I'll leave that up to.
Let's recap last weekend.
All right, so the dust has settled on the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. So brilliantly with our cover artist, has been eliminating the helmets per week. If you're seeing the cover of our show, the Junction 119 cover on
Yeah.
Spotify, and I it's so who, even if you're not follower of the NFL, which you'd be listening to our show, you wouldn't be if you're not. Obviously, we're going to go in order here. We had the Ravens, 49ers, Lions, and Bills, and Chiefs rather, come out on top and continue on to make it to the AFC and NFC Championship games respectfully. Let's go game by game for the weekend. First, we had Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens defeat the Houston Texans 34-10. We'll go in order. Thoughts, reactions, anything we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that game, we thought it was going to be a little weird. It ended up being very close. It was tied at halftime. It was 10-10 a half. It was relatively sloppy, as we kind of thought. The wet, I think it was raining most of the time. It was a little cold. So it was, not ideal conditions being outside in Baltimore in January. So, and obviously, you can only do so much. Normally, in addition to the fact that CJ, Houston Dome, I am not acclimated to that, at least as of late. So
I
it
thought
just can't.
I thought
Anyway,
it was
you
a
go ahead.
I thought it was a very even first half, but honestly, Baltimore made their second half adjustments and demolished them in the second half. Like it was so very apparent. And I'll tell you where the Ravens really impressed me, as much as I don't like to say it as a Steelers fan, their defense is good. Like Baltimore's defense is really, I think, in a large part, a reason why they're here beyond just the play of Lamar and the offensive moves they've made and looked great all year. I mean, if you recall, I mean, this is a team that actually completely stomped out the Lions this year, among other blowouts that they handed out. And I mean, that was one of the really rare missteps by Detroit this year. And it's very clear to me why they were able to do it by this game. And that was essentially it. So in the second half, it felt more like, thanks for coming out, Texans, as we've been saying. Thanks for coming out. But I was happy that Houston held their own in the first half, at least.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of go through the Texans, I guess you could say drives to be like in the first half of the game, they had a little bit more success. I mean, their first. Let me just go through this, I guess. So to open the game, the Texans, they had punt, field goal, punt, and then there was a punt return, that was how they scored their touchdown. And then the Texans missed a field goal. Then they had the end of half, and then they basically didn't do anything the entire rest of the game.
Yeah, they got completely shut out in the
Yeah,
second half.
they only got, like, if you go through their drives, it was 32 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 17 yards. Like they barely got any yardage in the second half of the game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it would have been, it would have been significantly worse if they didn't get that punt return touchdown.
Meanwhile, the Ravens third quarter touchdown, fourth quarter touchdown,
Yeah,
field goal.
yeah. So it felt like it definitely felt like um Mike McDonald, I think, is the defensive coordinator for the Ravens. He knew how to get after CJ, how to confuse him, throw him exotic coverages. Which, I mean, rookie QB, it is what it is. I mean, you kind of expect that. But along with kind of what I said it last week, I think, like, for whatever reason, Mike McDonald knows how to shut down the Shanahan offense. Like, he's figured out how to counter it. Like, no, I don't think there's been a single, like, Shanahan or Shanahan disciple that's been able to successfully score a ton on them. If I mean, it, like, we saw it happen with the Niners, with the Dolphins. Bobby Slowick, is a disciple of Shanahan, and so the Texans now, and so it's one of those things where it's just that system works, but if somebody like McDonald can figure out how to counter it, they can't do anything the entire game.
Right, and it makes you wonder how now before they would see literally another Shanahan in the Super Bowl, they have to go through an Andy Reid offense, right? It's gonna
Yeah,
I think that is the matchup more about it. We'll get to that game, of course, but that's more that, like, I'm making the point like you are, that the Ravens defense might be really the side of the ball to keep an eye on going into
yeah.
this matchup this weekend based on their performance against the Texans. But ultimately, I will say on the Texans, they were ahead of schedule. Like, I feel I'm getting ahead of
Mhm.
myself here, but I feel very similar about the Houston Texans as I do, honestly, this new kind of look, Green Bay Packers, in that
Yeah.
thanks for coming out. That's the joke, but honestly, you're ahead of schedule, and no one had you in the divisional round. So, especially not with a rookie quarterback, the Texans are going places, and I think very soon. And
I
on it,
mean,
yeah,
it's not even like CJ played poorly.
mm-mm.
I mean, he was 19 of 33 for 175 yards. I mean, his ratings were a little low, but he didn't have any picks. He didn't get sacked. I mean, he was able to play an inefficient game just because of the coverages and the defense, but it wasn't his, like, mistakes costing them the game.
I think the Texans are about to hit that kind of dream window where you have found a guy and he's not on his really big deal yet. He's on his rookie contract, and if you can put the
Yeah.
right pieces around him in this little burst of a window that you've just seemingly come across,
We'll see, and we'll talk about the coaching, the coaching carousel later.
mm-hmm.
But if they can retain Bobby Slowick for another year and add even more, draft picks and free agents, then, I mean, the sky's the limit with this Texans roster.
Weaponry. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so there it was. Moving on to literally the next game of the weekend. Good transition because the San Francisco 49ers defeated the Green Bay Packers 24-21 in a game that was much closer than you and I predicted, and I think most people predicted, to the point where I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think there's some foreshadowing about this 49ers squad going into this weekend. But nonetheless, the 49ers really had to put it on in the second half, specifically the fourth quarter,
Yeah.
to to actually win this game. I mean, there was a period of time where I definitely thought they would lose it.
Yeah. I
It was
mean,
possible.
yeah, I was definitely thinking that as well. I think that a huge portion of the, I guess you could say, problem with sort of the game flow from the Niners perspective came from the weather. The weather was definitely a factor. It was pouring for a lot of the game. There was a really interesting clip that was going around of Brock Purdy like wiping off his hands while he was mid step back. And it was just crazy. Like I'm sure it was very difficult to play in, and it just feels like there's a recurring theme of Purdy maybe not being the most efficient quarterback in those conditions, which is great that you live and play in San Francisco, but the occasional rainstorm is when there's a problem with that. So
right, it makes me think that he would really benefit from being on a dome team.
I think like the one game a year in San Francisco, it's going to be raining.
Exactly.
I mean, it's either a dome team or in California where it's mostly going to be fine.
It rains and gets cold in Northern California. It's just not exact. Like the precipitation is just different. You're right. All honesty, kind of on like a different, having been out there myself in my life, fog is more of an issue out there. Like the heavy thick fog. Yeah. And I'll leave it at that. But it's an interesting climate there in the northern part of California, and as you go even further up Pacific Northwest. But that being said, I feel very similar to like I said about the Packers. Hey, above ahead of schedule. Of course, you run into a team like this. The Packers didn't look like they didn't belong. Traditionally, the 49ers beat them in the playoffs, but I do want to give a shout out to specifically Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he is looking every bit like the player that, quite frankly, his time was a bit squandered in Carolina. I mean, and that was a great trade when the Niners made it, but he had 2 touchdowns in this game, including like the game sealing one. And I got to say, I think that he also benefited from the weather and the conditions, right? Because he could bail out Purdy on those situations, right?
I do also think that like for what it's worth, and this is definitely going to be probably something to discuss the next round, but I mean, Debo not being there hurt them a lot.
It did.
I mean, Debo went out relatively early in the game, and it seems like it felt like it felt like Kyle had a heavy Debo game plan with the weather, which included probably a lot of Debo runs and things like that.
Yep.
And when he got taken out of the game, it was just kind of like, what do we do now?
Yeah, they became a lot less versatile. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's literally no way you can't use Debo. So so you're implying that the game would have not been this close. It would have probably been more like the Ravens score.
I mean, obviously, like you can say whatever you want to say, but like I think if it was better conditions and at Debo, they would have probably won by 2 touchdowns.
I'll say this. I will say that I saw on Twitter and other places when Debo went out of the game, it was immediately like, oh no, like is the curse of the Niners about to I was like, hopefully not for them. But
I mean, it was very close. I mean, anybody that was watching the game, like the game flow, like Packers had the ball with the chance to win it, and it was a nail biter for sure for a lot of people in the Bay. So,
and I will say this: if the Packers had won this game, I would be sitting here today saying, if all they lost was Debo and they lost to this Packers team, they weren't that good all year. Like I would be sitting here saying that. Instead, I'm sitting here saying they're deep enough to where they lost Debo for most of the game and still found a way to win it. Yeah, a tough game where their opponent was putting forth their best effort. So I think it says the opposite of what the narrative would have been.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that my takeaway moving to, I guess, the Packers side of this, my takeaway was that this solidified that I believe Jordan Love is a lot more Brett Favre than Aaron Rodgers. If you want to align them to former Packers, I mean,
interesting.
Anybody that saw the end of that game, that horrific interception he threw at the very end of the game. I said at the time, I was like, that's Brett Favre. and I mean, somebody, who you are, called me an idiot for that. And within hours, somebody on Twitter posted like a side-by-side of the same exact play and interception that Brett Favre threw like 25 years ago. and
Yeah.
and I like running out of bounds, just chucking it across his body. And then I was like, yeah, that's a horrific throw. And it was just like, of course I was gonna get picked. Like, are you crazy?
Well, it's easier for Love in his stage of his career to do that than at times Favre did in his with the some of the just absolutely horrendous picks that he threw in his career
Yeah.
in clutch
Oh yeah.
moments. But it is definitely we're always looking for trends, right? We're always looking for comparisons. Honestly, even when they're not really fair, like of course Packers fans and others and Packers haters, quite frankly, are gonna make a comparison like that. But it is definitely
Yeah.
something to keep your eye on.
I Jordan Love, I mean, has shown a lot of his ceiling and his potential, but I mean, hey, I got to give him credit. Like the last couple games have shown that he's a lot more of a gunslinger than I think we thought he was, and so you gotta at least commend him on that. Of he's always trying to make a play, and it definitely cost him in this game, but. If they can, continue working on his decision making a little bit to be a little bit more intelligent about when to throw it and when to not,
Right.
then I think he has a real chance uh to make a lot of people in the NFC North cry again. So
I will
uh
say one other huge takeaway I have, and I can say this as a Steelers fan. I think, like the Steelers showed this year, in making it to the playoffs, the Packers show that they're a stable franchise. They have a solid
yeah.
base, they have a solid nucleus, and quite frankly, in the NFC North might shift around, but it's not going away.
Hey, I'll give an early one here. Early winner of the playoffs. The Packers front office and Brian Gutekunst. I mean,
Yeah,
everybody gave them
Gutekunst.
so
Yeah,
good. Everybody gave them so much of their mind in their opinions over the Love draft pick, the Rodgers situation, and we were like, oh, the Packers are done. They're cooked. And it turned out they won. Like they were 5 steps ahead of everything the whole time.
I think
Like they
LaFleur
they
has something
saw
to do with it as well.
yeah.
I will say I do think at the time that the Packers fans were justifiably unhappy, and that has not wavered. That literally has not wavered until these playoffs. To me, because I think these literally getting in these playoffs and getting this far has ultimately proved that yes, that's correct. But I will say I think they got a bit lucky that Love has at least turned well, at least up to now, seemingly might have a high ceiling. Um, let's see it.
Yeah,
Let's see
yeah.
how good they are next year. I mean, you got to string it together. But I will say at the time for where Aaron Rodgers was in his career, had they, I mean, I want to say after that, yeah, Aaron Rodgers played 2 more seasons where I really think that more weapons could have really made them a really tough contender. Uh, that said, that they were going for the long term. They were going for the long term stability rather than the win here now, right? Because they figured they're good enough to win here. So
Yeah, I feel like I feel like their front office is never like they never sell out to win a Super Bowl. Like they're not the team that's going to trade 10 first round picks to go get, somebody who's going to get them to the Super Bowl. They are focused on, making sure that you're almost winning the NFC North every year.
always competitive. They are.
Always
I'm just
competitive.
going to lean to the side. They are the exact same. The Steelers. I
Yeah.
mean, they're the comparisons of each other in their respective North divisions. I just
Yeah.
think they mirror each other, just like how
I
up
mean,
until recently the Lions mirror the Browns. It's historic.
yeah.
I mean,
And even if you think about it, like the Steelers have had, like 3 coaches in what, like 35 years, or
yeah,
what is it,
it's more than that. I used to know the
40
number
years?
right
I
off the
don't know.
top of my head. Yeah,
But
but
I
yeah,
mean, and the Packers have had 3 quarterbacks in 30 years. I mean,
true.
I mean, they managed to basically,
And
they're definitely the NFC Steelers for
they
sure.
also don't really have that high of a revolving door at coach either. I mean, in our lifetime, I want to say the Packers have had like 3 or 4, which is a lot compared to the Steelers. No one
Yeah.
is the Steelers. I don't like making that comparison,
I
but
mean,
they give
McCarthy
their
was
they
there for a long time,
was there for a
and
long time.
it really it took a lot for him to get fired. I
Exactly.
mean, it took a lot.
Yeah. The similar trend now in Dallas, maybe. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving on to the two way more interesting games of the weekend. You have the Detroit Lions defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in what was a nail biter. My friend Casen said it was going to be a
Yeah.
nail biter, and it was. It was. I will say at no point in the game did Detroit not look like the better team. They looked like the better
Yeah.
team the entire 60 minutes, to me, no question. And I thought to myself, if the Buccaneers come back and make this a game, and again, it did come down to a last drive in which they had a chance, had they gone the distance, to tie the game, I would be sitting here thinking to myself, the Lions let this go. The Lions let this get away. But when it came right down to it, they clamped down. I don't think I'm just going on a little bit of a spiel here. I don't think this story is just about how good the Lions are, because they are. They're fun to watch. They're great offensively. I want to say their offensive coordinator, I have to look up his name, is a high candidate to be one of the
Ben
to grab
Johnson.
thank you. Yeah, he's going to be probably a head coach in the NFL next year. But he stuck with the Lions through Campbell's kind of uprise, and I think he's a large part of their success and in trickeration, and a large part of why they're in the NFC Championship game, quite frankly. But this story is also about how Baker's career is not over. I actually, it was very interesting to see how good the Buccaneers really were down the stretch, and there were times in that game when they were cooking, like long passes to Mike Evans, and other times so much so that even when Detroit was up 30, what was it, 31-17? Gonna jump in here to the box score. But there was a one point with, I want to say, 5, 6, 7 minutes left. 5, 6, 7 minutes left in the game.
They were up 31-17.
Lions were up 31-17, and I was texting back and forth with a few people, and it definitely did not feel like the game was over or away, because there was just so much time left, and the Buccaneers were moving the ball so easily, with the Achilles heel, if you will, of the Detroit Lions, their passing defense, which I ultimately do think do enough to kind of bully you down the field. They honestly remind me a little bit of like the Dick LeBeau Steelers offensive pass or defensive passing defense, excuse me. But that being said, the Lions did get it done, and they got a game-sealing interception. Well, I literally on the first pass last drive. So thoughts, Casen? Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say, because I haven't really talked much about this game with you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the Baker Mayfield component of it. And I mean, he played well, but I mean, again, it's the Baker Mayfield experience. I mean, there's a lot of good, but I mean, he threw 2 picks, so it's just, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, he is able to, really sling it around, for the most part. And then you just gotta hope that the picks aren't backbreakers. But
Yeah,
which I mean, I mean, he's a lot like a Goff. Like Jared Goff could have very easily thrown 2 picks today or that day too. I mean, it's just it's just who both of them kind of are. And
yeah,
so I think this was a really fun quarterback matchup because they're both very similar play style
I agree.
quarterbacks.
And you've honestly, and it's so funny. You're like, it's the Baker Mayfield experience. I thought you were going to add something along the lines of, I hope you enjoy it, Tampa, because looks
No,
like
I mean, I mean, I have nothing against him at all. I mean, I I thought he was a really great quarterback for us at the time, and it's just sometimes you just got to do what it is. I mean, if that's the quarterback you have, you just got to hope that your defense can, you know, not make you pay for those interceptions when they do come.
yeah.
But
I'll,
yeah,
I'll,
I mean,
I'll
I credit to that team because that team, I mean, barely backed in to the playoffs to begin with by winning, one of the worst divisions in the league. And
and they eliminated the nosediving Eagles. So I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I don't. How impressive is that? In hindsight, not very. But
Well, I it was more impressive that they were very competitive with the Lions.
yeah,
And so they were theoretically one score away from, a trip to San Francisco. So
it's incredible. I'm gonna forget it and of the weeks later, so I just want to go ahead and say a cool thing now. Shout out to Derek Barnes, who was the Lions linebacker, who is the actual guy who caught the interception that sealed it and sent the Detroit Lions to the NFC Championship game, because he's actually the player who famously had the interaction with Andrew Whitworth, and so much so that Whitworth talked about it at the NFL awards and told that story about how he saw this player coming up to him and saying, "You're not going to remember me, but I'm Derek Barnes, and you spent a lot of time with me at the Boys and Girls Club in Cincinnati, and that meant the world to me." And he's like, I just ran up here to tell you I made it, Big Wit. I made it to the NFL. Still one of the most like tear-jerking and like goosebump-inducing moments anyone's ever talked about. Big Wit talking about that. First ballot, probably Hall of Famer, Andrew Whitworth, talking about the Derek Barnes, who knows, could be well on his way to a similar career, right? But yeah, I mean, there were various people that pointed out to me, including my mom, shout out, that we focus so much on the bad stories of the negativity in the NFL, right? When really, honestly, most of the guys are good human beings doing the best with their platform, right? And still one of the best stories. I just thought it was awesome. It was Derek Barnes who did that. You know, the connection all the way back to when like Big Wit was talking to him as a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you gotta love connections like that. So the reason I was going to bring it up in other the weeks, but I was like, I will forget because there's other stuff I want to talk about. I would have given him my absolute dog of the week. So, yeah. Anything more on this game, or do we want to get to the game that I cannot tell you how excited I am to talk to you about?
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. The finale of the weekend was your. I also say your Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Bills, falling to the Kansas City Chiefs at home by a final score of 27-24. And I also wanted to point this out: the only team in the divisional round to not win at home, they lost to the road team. They're the only team that did that. So, Casen, why don't you start us off with this? Whatever you want to say. This is, in a lot of ways, I've been waiting for this kind of magnum opus moment all season long. I think our listeners have too. Take it away, my friend.
Look, so I'll open this. I'll open this by saying that I apologize for nothing. I actually demand an apology in return from Josh Allen and the rest of the Bills. I've been right the entire time. The Buffalo Bills Super Bowl window is closed and locked away in the Federal Reserve, never to be seen again. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm sorry to the people of Buffalo. I'm sorry to all Bills fans, but your team sucks and it's time to move on. Like, I just deal with it. Like, trade Josh, trade everybody, blow it up, like start over. I mean, it's just done. Like, I mean, you're gonna have to. I mean, I honestly wouldn't even be opposed to moving on from McDermott. Like, it's just like the team is what it is.
I think that's more of a constructive move than anything you just said. But we'll get there.
The team is what it is. Like we saw the entire game. The only person on the field in blue that knew how to play football was wearing number 17. He was carrying that entire offense on his back, and he almost did it by himself. I mean, I'm not even gonna say this one's on Josh. I mean,
no,
it was a cold day. It was a little brutal conditions, but I mean, he was running around. He was trying to make this win happen for the city, and nobody else wanted to help him. Like you had everybody dropping passes. You had the quite honestly, I play call of the week to have DeMar Hamlin fake punt.
Yeah,
that ultimately ended up not really mattering. But like I said it during the game. I was like, I think I tweeted it. The like the Bills were trying to give the game away to the Chiefs the entire time, and then the Chiefs kept refusing to keep it. Like that, like, and then it was just sort of like they kept giving the game away to each other.
They were
and like
trading. I mean, honestly, I feel kind of bad for Tyler Bass, the Bills kicker, because we didn't really run through the game because we're assuming most people here saw it. It did end on a wide right, but I will say this: the only reason that he was even in that situation is because the running back of the Chiefs fumbled it out of the back of the end zone, or that would have been the dagger right there. Like that game, game was over. Like that game was actually
that
over.
wasn't even the running back. That was Mecole Hardman.
It was Hardman. That's right.
Like like all again. Why are you running a sweep with Mecole Hardman?
Right.
Like it was both teams kept like big braining themselves into horrific play calls and mistakes that like were trying, like they were trying to cost themselves the game on both sides.
They were trying to give it away.
Like did you see it? Like I think it was the first Travis Kelce touchdown where no one was around him.
Yeah.
Like it was like, hey, I don't know, maybe we should guard Travis. Don't leave him wide open in the end zone.
One of the greatest tight ends in NFL history, who's just wide open. There were actually, since then, people have pointed out there were actually a number of blown coverage moments where it was like, there's just no one around these guys, and it's like, well, this has been the Bills' problem the whole time McDermott's been the coach.
No, exactly. Is
among
that
other things?
I'm not going to put the defense entirely on McDermott because Leslie Frazier, like, sort of semi-retired in like August.
Mm-hmm.
And McDermott had to just, because of the timing, he just had to become the defensive coordinator and take it over. And so he clearly doesn't have the brain capacity to be the head coach and the defensive play caller. And I don't blame him for that. Like, I mean, that's difficult to do especially if you're not planning on
doing it. They're two different jobs. They are.
And so I think that it was just, it was, the defense was bad, along with the fact that the Bills had like no linebacker depth. Matt Milano's been gone all year. That I think they lost another linebacker. And so it's just like I knew that was going to be a problem immediately.
Yeah.
Like especially because of the wide receiver problem in Kansas City, they live in the linebacker area. And so if you have practice squad linebackers, you're going to have some problems.
That's what makes Travis so dangerous, because he can go deep or he can go short.
That was why he feasted when, like, because they have nowhere to cover in the middle of the field. And it's just like Travis just had himself a day.
I think you did a really good job discussing the X's and O's. I've been thinking bigger picture since the dust has settled, since we're kind of well past the end of the game now, what this says about this era of like the Bills' legacy. It's really, here's the thing. I do want to say this. There were some great quarterbacks who played in the same era as Tom Brady, right? Throughout his entire dominance, who went ringless, who straight up losing to him because he was just that good. And the reality is that Mahomes is that guy now. Like, if Allen stays his entire career in Buffalo, which I'm not convinced he's going to do, not when we've seen guys like Stafford do what they did, right? I'm not convinced that's going to happen. But even if he does, if he never wins a ring, we are going to have to sit around and say one of the reasons is because he just could never beat Patrick Mahomes. And among other QBs, I mean, the only reason Ben got rings is because we missed Tom Brady. He never got one on any year where we hit the Patriots. You know, I just use him as an example, which is why I sent you the example of Phillip Rivers Chargers. I mean, now I will say at times the Chargers, this Bills team has looked more cohesive and more powerful than some of those Chargers teams, but there were some good years for the Chargers in there where some years one of the years the Steelers eliminated them in Heinz Field. I remember that. And it's not just like the circumstances of you winning a title have to be there as well. And beyond just how good this Bills team is and they just can never get over that hump, part of this is just the fact that the Chiefs are just here now. And I heard someone say this. Patrick Mahomes is the new Brady in the sense of there are children right now, maybe not children. There are middle schoolers playing football right now who might be helping him win championships 10 years from now. And he's still the quarterback in Kansas City where the whole roster is flipped over around him, because that is what happened to Brady. he had that initial pop of the Super Bowls when he was younger.
Yeah.
They went into a lull. They reloaded under that Belichick system, and a completely new group of nobodies helped him win. And you know, they went from Welker to Edelman. They went from like Moss to Gronk. I mean, there are multiple eras here. And I think that regardless of how long Andy Reid stays, because if he departs, I think they're going to struggle offensively more. But I really think that part of it is just that Mahomes is that guy as well. And he's just clearly the best quarterback in the league. And I don't want to hear one more person I don't want to hear from ever again, Casen. I'm amazed you implied it, but he deserves to be told by name. Stefon Diggs, I don't want to hear you complaining ever again.
Oh yeah, I mean he's
multiple
not gonna.
He didn't. He was real quiet this week, wasn't he?
Has he sold his house in Buffalo yet?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, he's not coming back.
I doubt he is, but part of it is also like, especially after the very, very huge drop. I mean,
he's been invisible most of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, I think
it is more your fault that you didn't win this year than Josh Allen's fault, and I don't want to. Here's the
other thing, though, too, of what I think people sort of forget about Stefon Diggs. I think maybe this is a hot take, but I don't think he ever deserved to be in like top 5 elite wide receiver conversations. His entire career is based off of Stefon Diggs is essentially Odell. His entire career is based off of one highlight play,
one huge play,
won him a game. And since then, he's been kind of ignored for being like very average.
Honestly, to be honest with you, yes, I was going to say that the Minneapolis Miracle in a lot of ways he has the last like 5 years of his career to thank for, because when he got that touchdown in Minnesota and amazingly threw his helmet off in what was one of the greatest celebrations in NFL history, and of course he had. I mean, I do think at his core he's a good guy. Let me just say that. But in terms of for a position that kind of goes diva-esque, you got one big highlight, it goes to your head, and you start getting talked about, and you go from one shaky quarterback situation to a very good one in Buffalo. I agree with you, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially from the fact of like, you think about it, like Minnesota traded Stefon Diggs for Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think won that trade? Like,
exactly. So
I mean, and so it's like Stefon, like. Gabe Davis was like, he had like two the last couple of years were really good. This year he was like invisible.
Mm-hmm.
When Gabe Davis was there to really draw some attention away from Stefon could get open and he could feast. But when Stefon was getting covered most of the game, he can't clear the backers. He can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you look at the drop issues, like he dropped the most important catch, like that cancels out the Minneapolis Miracle. Like it cancels out. Like you're back to square one, Stefon.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to Pacheco. I mean, it wasn't all Mahomes. I mean, he got 97 yards. I thought that guy was an absolute workhorse. Travis Kelce goes without saying. I also want to give a shout out to, I'll bring it up in other weeks again, but Jason Kelce, we'll get to that. But anyway, bottom line.
Final
thought is, as comical as it was, and you received a Snapchat from me, among other people, of my immediate reaction of how funny it was, mainly because of how much we've talked about the Bills this year. I saw that kick go right, and at the same time it was sailing right. It was amazing, Casen. Like my whole body just immediated reacted to hearing the loudest window slam in my life.
Yeah.
And it was that window slamming shut.
I definitely do feel very bad for Tyler Bass, because like he had to delete his social media this week. Like, that's ridiculous.
Anytime it is absurd that football has developed as a game to where one specific position has literally all the pressure, and if they miss it, it just like ruins their life. I think that's like the worst thing. It's one of the worst things about the sport. Period.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, there were so many other things that like shouldn't have even put him in that position. Like
Right.
the touchdown that was missed to was it Khalil Shakur? Is that the guy Khalil Shakur? That was a touchdown that was dropped or missed. Then the Stephon catch that was dropped. Then you had the fake punt that almost ended up costing them the game.
Allen had a pair of incompletions. Like he, to his credit, Josh Allen went right up to him after the game. I mean, lifted him up. You have to. I mean, it's the exact same narrative we've heard a million times before. But the Bills in '89, Norwood, arguably the worst miss in the history of the NFL in terms of a miss to lose like that.
Yeah,
that's a chip shot, basically the same field goal to lose the Super Bowl, to where that's like your legacy. Where overall he was actually a really good kicker in the history of the NFL. I mean, to be so synonymous with that, one, is not fair. I mean, that was one of the most public instances of that happening early, at a time when football was getting, it was one of the instances of it happening on a huge stage. But all those guys said the same thing. Like, I missed blocks. This guy missed tackles. Like he should not have been in that situation. And I will say, there's a moment in Four Falls of Buffalo where they're having essentially a city celebration for the Bills anyway, even though they lost the Super Bowl. It's a thing that would never happen today, okay? But they're essentially having a little bit of a mini parade for them even getting there, because nothing like that had ever happened in Buffalo's history. And the crowd famously chanted, "We want Scott." And Scott Norwood came out to the front and spoke. And it was a really emotional moment because he was trying to hide. You know what I mean? And it was one of those things where, it's a good thing when you think about it in history, because like forgiveness is good. It's actually one of my favorite 30 for 30 moments, because I was like, that would never happen today. Like,
no, never.
Nothing like that would ever, like, that is truly something in the past that will never happen again, that I have never seen in my life, and I never will. Like, what, like the celebration for one, but like, I mean, even like nothing like if the Cleveland Browns went to the Super Bowl and lost in that way, that would not happen in Cleveland. I only use that example. If it happens for the Detroit Lions, who knows? But never say never, I guess. But that would most likely not happen today. And it's of course it happened to this franchise again. And it's just unfortunate. And I in no way think that's why I'm glad we talked about everybody else, because I'm like, it is not this kicker's fault they lost that game. I'm sorry. Like,
no, I mean,
that would have only tied the game, by the way.
Yeah.
That would have only tied it. That wasn't to win it. That was only tied it where they hilariously probably would have lost in overtime again. That's what
if it had even gone to overtime, like he makes that kick, Patrick gets the ball back, and he's gonna go down and score.
Yeah, he's like, oh,
it doesn't even matter.
I was ready for that. I was like, I'm like, I'll tell you who's revving up the engines: Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like, oh, I got to go 70 yards in like a minute and a half. Easy.
Yeah, that in that moment, you just go for it on fourth down, because you're not winning this game anyway.
Challenge accepted, Bills. That goes in. Anyway,
because I sat there and I was like, that's like 90 seconds. That's way too much time. They're gonna lose. And then he missed it, and I was like, okay, so it doesn't really matter.
I will say confidently, and this is actually my actual last thoughts on the game. At no point almost in the entire second half did I think the Chiefs were not going to win. Almost at no point. I was like, the Chiefs are going to win this game. They're fundamentally just doing everything better. than the Bills. At no, like, truly, and the only thing that gave them a little bit of hope was that touchback. That touchback doesn't happen, that game's over. Like, forget it. So I don't know where the Bills go from here, but we'll be here to talk about it. That said,
the only other note, the one last note I wanted to say was that the reason that I am so confident, or with my joke about the window closing, is
it's not a joke. You made that very clear.
Well, I
like to apologize to absolutely nobody.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen's cap hit goes up $30 million next year.
Yeah.
So it's just like this was the time to take advantage of him on cheaper money, and now he's going to be on the books for almost $50 million.
Yeah.
And we saw what happened with Mahomes when you can't pay Tyreek, when you can't pay everybody else around him. Like, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to get rid of Stephon. They're going to have to, start from scratch and draft a new number one receiver. And I mean, it's doable. Like, it's possible. Like, you can win with an expensive quarterback. It's just very difficult.
Which is why
you have to have things fall in place. And in an AFC with all of these quarterbacks, it's just so hard to do. Like, I mean, it's just you're gonna have to hope for a year like this one where everybody else that's going to be in your competition just goes down and you can walk your way into the Super Bowl. Like
it's almost
if the Bills didn't lose to the Chiefs, they would have lost to Joe Burrow. Like it's just
people said the same thing about Manning and Brady in their time, and I'll just say it now. It's a cliche. It's too bad these guys, one of them isn't in the NFC, because I really think that, like, you put this Bills team in the NFC, one of these years they could probably. I mean, they beat the Eagles beat them this year, but they've been toe to toe with other teams. I mean, the point I'm making is I think that they could have gotten out of the NFC one of these years, and we would have had a Super Bowl for the ages. It's just how it goes, right? As AFC fans ourselves, I ain't crying myself to sleep anytime soon. Hey, it's been a gauntlet for years. It's gonna be a gauntlet forever.
I mean, it does beg the question of, like, at what point do you just get rid of that and have it just be like the 14 best teams in the league?
Well, that's a topic for another time. I really is an interesting thought experiment. But put a pin in that, because unlike the NBA and the NHL and other sport, even the NHL stays East and West, the NFL is probably the league that's least likely to really improve if you were to do that. You know, in other words, it's probably the least necessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, the playoffs are fine as they were. Why would we do that anyway? So yeah, what do you want to talk about next, man? Do you want to go to of the weeks, or do we want to get into the AFC and NFC Championship games and predict those?
We'll let's keep on the games. So we'll go look ahead next week, and then we'll
all right,
just kind of
set the stage, man.
All right, so we've got. Have you seen the lines yet?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Guess the line.
So we will go ahead and do Chiefs are heading into Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
This is Mahomes' second road playoff game. So the Chiefs in Baltimore against the Ravens on Sunday the 28th at 3 on CBS. Guess the line.
This is interesting, because this is the first time the Baltimore Ravens franchise in their existence have ever hosted the AFC Championship game.
I believe so.
Yes, and which is pretty interesting. I haven't been around that long, but I am going to say, because it is in Baltimore, I am going to go Ravens 2.5. That's my guess.
Ravens 4.
Okay. That's given a lot of respect to
that seems a lot, but I think it's that defense. I mean, we talked about it with the Texans game. I mean, I think that defense, combined with a lot of the I guess sort of issues that we saw with the Chiefs offense for most of the season, I think that's definitely something to think about. And I think I would absolutely not be surprised if the Ravens cover that. I mean, I see a universe where the Ravens are able to just absolutely just get, maybe sack Patrick several times, and be all, and the DBs are all over the field. He can't make any throw.
If Baltimore wins it and covers, it's only going to be by like a touchdown. Like there's no way that I see it being razor thin. Like I said, I wouldn't have been surprised. I almost said by 1.5. I will say this. That's just me respecting Patrick Mahomes and how good he's been. I will say this. It is very funny to me that the narrative around this game on social media seems to be one man can stop the Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl. There's one man. Like, I've seen so many posts, Casen, that just start with that narrative, and it's like the Mahomes it's all that stuff, and then it's just Lamar Jackson highlights. and I think, and I'm put at a crossroads, because I'm like, yeah, but I don't want the Ravens to win the Super Bowl. Like, every Steelers fan is over here like, I don't want this. Are you kidding me? Anyway, I just find that a bit humorous. On a serious note, who do you think wins the game?
Yeah, I will say Ravens. And I think they'll cover only because like they'll score a touchdown and then that'll just be the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Ravens 31, Chiefs 24.
Now, he gave a score. Wow. Okay. Um, you know what? The defense I saw that Baltimore has is the like I said, that is the matchup. That is the matchup. Can that finally? You're not going to stop them, but can you slow Patrick Mahomes on a year where they don't have the strongest receiving core? Let's be honest. Let's just be real about that. As they have in past years of dominance, they're on the road. They're in Baltimore. That said, there is no universe in which I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens. Even over this, even this, I think the Chiefs win. I think the Chiefs are going to show that they're as legit as possible. And I don't know if they'll necessarily win the Super Bowl, but there's been part of me that's just kind of felt like there's been a brewing rematch at times. But I'm not foreshadowing by saying this. I'm just saying they've been wondering when this is going to happen again. Are the Niners and Chiefs going to meet in that Super Bowl again? You know what I mean? Like we saw. And I don't know. Yeah, I think they're motivated to show all collectively, Travis, Patrick, everyone involved, Andy Reid, quite frankly, that they are those dudes, and that the Ravens are not. Plus, Lamar's due for some bad playoff. I keep saying he's due until he finally has it. I'm gonna keep saying he's due. So we're at odds on this. I picked the Chiefs, and I picked them.
I mean, makes sense.
I picked the Chiefs 20, 24 to 22, just to make it a weird score. To make my guess line correct.
Okay. All right. Then the NFC Championship game is the Detroit Lions heading into the Bay to take on San Francisco 49ers, Sunday the 28th at 6:30 on Fox. Guess the line.
Guess the line. Well, it's absolutely the 49ers. That's not the tough thing here. The question here for our listeners is how much respect do the odds makers give the Detroit Lions? That's really what my brain says. So I'm going to go San Francisco 7, right on the dot.
According to ESPN Bet, it is precisely San Francisco -7.
Hey, yes.
So
let's go.
Yeah, there you go.
Pat myself on the back. I legitimately did not know. I was just like, what makes sense? And I pull over. Yep, that's what it is. At least as of Thursday/Friday.
Yeah.
Cool. I was this whole time I was like waiting to actually flip over the page because I didn't want to spoil it. So you know what? The Detroit Lions are America's team right now. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go ahead and use that cliche right out of the gate. I have for friend of the show James and others. I have openly said that I am like straight up rooting for the Lions. I just think that this story is awesome, and we've said now like what 2 or 3 weeks in a row that's the story, like story of the week / story of the year has been this team, and they're fun to watch, man. They really are. I mean they've got one of the more fun offenses to really watch beyond the ones that we talked about already. I am curious to hear who you think wins.
I would love to see the Lions win. But I mean I still have some serious concerns about the reliability of the Lions defense, and the Niners are they're just something. I mean, granted, it sounds like Debo's still questionable, so there's a lot of question marks over if he's even going to be playing. And so if he's not playing and they have a week to try and figure out how to shut everybody else down, it's doable. But I'll say Niners, but Lions keep it very close and they end up covering. I think it'll be a lot closer because they'll be able to keep in the game. So I'll go ahead and say I'll say Niners 20, Lions 17.
See, what's interesting is I see this game being the more high scoring between these two. And what's interesting is the total actually agrees with me. I'm actually surprised to see that. It says 51 and a half for this, and it's got 44 and a half for Chiefs Ravens.
You know what? That's fair. That's fair.
That is fair. Yeah. I'm not saying that so you'll change your score. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking it was going to be rainy again for some reason. Because my only thought with that was I didn't know for sure what the weather was going to be like, because they both Goff and Purdy have struggled in weather. We've seen Goff,
right.
There's a meme going around with like his dome and outside splits,
of course,
and it's not great. So
well, and also
I will see on the weather, but
he played for the LA Rams before, and they often, again, fine weather, if not rain. So simply because I love the narrative, and I want to be as team player as I possibly can. Give me the Lions to win this game. I think that, and let me give you some real fundamental reasons. I really think that even with Debo playing, this Lions team is way better than the Packers were last week. And I don't know. I would be telling you if this was in Detroit, definitely the Lions win. But the 49ers,
I would say sure. However, they just lost to the Packers at home on Thanksgiving.
They did. Now, just is kind of out there because we're well past the holidays. So, that's the interesting thing of, if this was the other way around and the Packers had won, right, does that give you more cause concern as being a Detroit Lions fan? I think the fact that they're so motivated, nothing to lose, the cake is formed. Everything that happens now is just the icing. I think the Lions can find a way to win this game, and I honestly think that like, it's going to be a test for the 49ers to deal with their offense. I really do. I mean, the offense, or the Lions do a lot of things on offense that are really, really creative, and they can beat you both running and passing. And my thoughts are, if the Lions can contain McCaffrey and Debo, they can make it a close game as well. That's going to make the Niners have to earn it to beat them.
If they can just shut down CMC, no problem, right?
Yeah, if they can just do that. If they can just shut down both players.
Just shut down the offensive player of the year. Yeah, just shut him down.
But I will say, like, it is shocking to me that the Niners, even without Debo, only beat that Packers team by 3 points. Like this Lions team is better than that team, like, at least right now, and they're playing.
Yeah,
and they're playing with more motivation too. That's the other thing. So,
I would say sure, but I do think the Niners have a decent amount of motivation too, because they were so close to going to the Super Bowl last year.
They're on their revenge tour.
And they feel like they would have won the Super Bowl last year if, they didn't end up not having a quarterback for the second half of the game.
Yeah.
And especially with the fact of, like, the Eagles just look bad now. And so, like, clearly they didn't deserve to be there. And they are the better team and should have ended up being there instead. So
I also am picking that because I want the season to end the exact way it began. I know a lot of people have talked about that this year. I'll tell you one thing. All those months ago when this season began, Casen, one thing was for sure. The Chiefs were playing at home against the Lions, lost, and Taylor Swift was not there, okay? And there was not this frenzy around them like there is now, where they're like they're a wagon for more reasons than just football, or we've had this narrative, which bias aside has actually been pretty funny and fun to watch. It's been pretty funny. And just the biggest podcast in the world being New Heights, and just this whole season's just been insane. I would love for the plucky Lions with Shady in the building to be there for the Super Bowl in Vegas, and it's the Detroit Lions against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's where it's literally ends how we began. I just think that would be fun. So, I did pick the Chiefs, so no matter what, I mean, we're either getting the rematch, because the Ravens aren't winning. It's gonna clip that and play the sound effect when the Ravens like win by 20 or something this weekend. I really hope that doesn't happen. I really hope that doesn't happen. But That's my pick. You and I are exactly at odds. We have literally a completely different Super Bowl on either side.
Yeah, yeah.
And after this week, we're gonna have to we won't talk, but we really won't talk about it over the next 2 weeks. But the it's always really awkward to me that the lull we get in between, and then we'll get the reindeer games. Yeah,
yeah.
So I knew it was gonna be the Pro Bowl, but I'm like, what can I call this to insult it anyway? To make fun of it. But anyway, yeah. So that's the picks. That's the picks. Let's get into of the week / addressing the news from today.
Yeah. We
to wrap up the
can.
sports talk.
Do you want to go ahead and start with the news, or do you?
Yeah, let's get into the news because it broke literally right before we were starting to record. So
yeah. So essentially, just we'll go ahead and go back, and to essentially sum up some hirings in the head coach space that have happened in the last couple days. Let me go ahead and get this. So to sum up, the Los Angeles Chargers have indeed officially hired Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh. It was a long process of it was, it was like 2 weeks of seeing if that was going to happen or not. He ended up, I think he was supposed to have a meeting with the Falcons yesterday that got canceled. And so that's what made people think that was progressing in LA to be finalized. And so he officially is gone from Michigan, as it's expected that he would have ended up getting show caused anyway. And there was sanctions raining down in Ann Arbor, but
people have already been making the comparisons to like Pete Carroll,
Yeah, I mean it definitely feels very similar. It makes sense.
It does, but like on a more serious note, there's literally nothing more you can do at Michigan. There's nothing like he came and he did the thing he set out to do, which is very hard to do. And
it also just makes sense because like everybody's gone anyway. I mean,
right. I mean,
he wasn't going to stay to win 9 games next year.
And not only that, it's like, what am I going to do? Go to a different like become the new try to become the new Saban at Michigan. It's like, no, I want to go back to the NFL.
He only went to Michigan because he got fired from the Niners. Like I don't think he liked coaching in college. I think he left Stanford to go to the Niners as soon as he could. And I think he liked college a lot, or liked the pros a lot more. And because he tried to leave Michigan like 7 times.
He did.
It was like every single year he kept trying to come back.
And I really believe that if one of those years Michigan had actually like pulled the trigger and fired him, he would have gone back to the NFL immediately. What is going to be interesting at the end of Jim Harbaugh's career, of which I really think that he could be in 2 Hall of Fames by the end of his career. 2 Hall of Fames, as in he's going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame, no question. To be also in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I really think he could end up in both, which is saying something. I mean, it would be really cool if he did all that stuff and he's in the Hall of Fame with a bust right next to his brothers, because John Harbaugh is also going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. No question. That being said, it's going to be fascinating to see, like, because I don't think there's ever been a coach like Harbaugh who's like done. It's like he's successful with this college place. Then he went to the 49ers and he was successful.
I mean, it's definitely a very short list of people who have been very successful every single place at every level they've been. I mean,
because even Saban knew he was.
Yeah,
Saban knew he was a college coach. He left the Dolphins, went back to Alabama, had his career.
Yeah, I mean, Harbaugh was great at San Diego. He was great at Stanford. He was great in San Francisco for most of the time. He was great at Michigan by the end. I mean, he's been able to win a lot at every place he's been, and it's definitely a very short list. I mean, I think, the one of the few people that I think should get credit for that would be Jimmy Johnson, probably. I mean, that's about.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
Technically, I think Barry Switzer, but that's it. I mean, that's the list. I mean,
they're both associated with Miami, right? No, yeah, Barry Switzer, was he? Can't remember. I have to wasn't Switzer the one who came in? I think I'm thinking of someone else. Anyway, I don't want to sidetrack the show conversation too much, but Jimmy Johnson.
Barry Switzer was at Oklahoma and the Cowboys.
That's right. He went to that. That's right.
Yeah. So he won 3 titles with Oklahoma, and
I'll tell you what.
he won Super Bowl 30 with the Cowboys.
I'm thinking of the beginning of the 30 for 30 the U part 2.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah. Barry
Butch
Switzer
Butch
beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Butch Davis is who I'm thinking of. That's right. In Super Bowl 30, I believe.
30. Yep.
What's interesting is that you're right. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, and it's funny that Jimmy Johnson, among other coaches, has continuously said, "I kind of wish I would have stayed in college because it was a lot of fun." But when you go to the NFL and you have all that success, I mean, it's like, wow.
Well, I mean, I also think that especially you look at it. I mean, Harbaugh as a person, you think of where college is going now, and just sort of the way that the season went.
Yeah.
Harbaugh is the type of person that wants nothing to do with these recruiting rules that are in place nowadays, and especially the NIL stuff.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't want to bother with that. Like, he's like, I can't buy my guys a cheeseburger. Like,
well,
I mean, I will give Michigan and the Michigan fans credit that, like, the whole cheeseburger situation at the beginning of the season and just the way that went down was dumb, albeit he handled it very badly, but those recruiting violations are just dumb. And I don't blame him for wanting to leave.
I want to shift. That's a good transition period. I want to shift to the narrative to one other thing I do want to point out. It is very fascinating that, like, for the first time ever, 3 out of the 4 head coaches in the college football playoff are no longer at their locations, and it goes back to the domino effect we talked about with Saban retiring last week. That's really what caused it. But it is fascinating. But what I'm implying here is I think you're going to see kind of I think starting this next year, you're going to start to see a little bit of a mass exodus of these older coaches who, even if they're having success, don't necessarily want to have to deal with where the industry is going in that regard. And you're going to see a lot more young guys come in who know it, who have maybe not know it, but have been around it now for most of their careers, right?
Well, it's also
try it out.
It's also, to an extent, a lot of the dudes that you're seeing really thrive in the NIL era are dudes who have spent time in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like you like Ohio State, Ryan Day, Chip Kelly guy in Philly and in San Francisco.
That's a really good point.
And you look at Steve Sarkisian, I think he was at the Falcons, right? I think so Sark spent some time in the league. Lane Kiffin spending a ton in Ole Miss. He was the Raiders coach. So it's just, you think of all the dudes who are really embracing NIL and shoveling money into their players are dudes who are used to that and are used to paying for a roster.
Maybe you'll start to see more assistant coaches in the NFL go to the college ranks as head coaches.
I think especially as you're looking at, like, which again, I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but when you're thinking about just sort of the behemoth of NIL and stuff that the Power 5 group of teams has fallen into, it's essentially another professional league. Like, so you're going to see, well, especially when you think of, like, Michigan, I think was going to end up paying Harbaugh like $20 million or something a year. Like, that's insane.
I keep hearing this cliche tossed around to bash college football, and you've heard it too. It's like, oh, it's only becoming a watered down version of the NFL. I'm over here saying, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, is that a problem?
I mean, it's like pseudo pro sports now anyway. I mean,
like,
come on.
Come on.
Anyway, I want to shift to another coaching hire because this is actually the one I was referring to that happened right before the show. The Falcons plan to hire Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris as their head coach. I will say this one surprises me a little bit. First of all, again, hats off, another minority hire in the NFL. You're really starting to see, I don't want to say the times change, but Rooney Rule and these guys get the recognition that they absolutely have earned. I will also say this though, and he has anyway at the Rams. But I will say this. Really surprised just because we've heard so many different people connected to the Falcons over the last week.
I think I saw that they had like 14 or 15 different people interview for that job. I mean, we were on the show last. We were doing the show last week. We thought it was a done deal. Bill Belichick was going to the Falcons.
Yeah,
and then as the process kept going and they just never ended up being done, it became clear that from what it sounded like was, everybody else in the front office didn't want Bill because they knew he was going to tank the entire front office. And so it sounds like Arthur Blank sort of listened to reason on the fact of like, why are you going to blow up the entire franchise for like 3 years of this 75-year-old coach?
True.
That might not even be good.
But yeah, it makes sense to me. I mean, and let's be honest here. Arthur Blank, pretty sensible owner, in my opinion. Seems like a decent dude. It's one of those things. But also at the same time, they're all NFL owners, so they do think with their wallets first. They're large bank accounts. So
yeah.
But that being said, that's a high number of people like to interview and hope you get it right at a place that, because of reasons I pointed out last week, I think is a more attractive job than people are going to get credit for. Especially
also for I mean, I kind of forgot about this. Raheem Morris was the interim head coach when Dan Quinn got fired in Atlanta.
Oh,
I totally forgot that happened. He was the DC there. Yeah, he was the DC that year. After he was there for 16 to 19, and then he was as the wide receiver coach, and then he was the defensive coordinator in 20, and then he was the interim coach after Dan Quinn got fired.
You know what? That makes me feel better about that hire even than I already did.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And then he went to the Rams in 21, and he ended up winning the Super Bowl with them. And so he's a two-time Super Bowl champion. He won it with the Bucs as a player with Gruden. And I mean, yeah, I think he was also a head coach 13 years ago. I mean, and he's only 47, so he was a head coach 13 years ago.
Wow.
He went 17-31 with the Bucs, including he had 1 year where he won 10 games, but then not so great other years.
He was the head coach of the Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Okay. So he won as a player way back with the Buccaneers. Then he was their head coach for a little while. Then he wasn't a head coach for a very long while. Then he became an interim. Now he's back to being a head coach. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, from everything I've heard, I mean, this is a dude who's, from everything I've heard, he's a really smart guy. And I don't know if you caught it when I said it, but he's coached on both the defensive and offensive side.
Yeah, that's huge.
And really, so he's very knowledgeable about both sides of the game, and especially after basically spending a bit of like an internship time period with McVay to really learn how McVay thinks and how that organization's run. I think this is a home run hire for the Falcons. I mean, especially for a franchise that's been crying for some stability and some forward thinking. I think they have a chance to really get a lot of stuff right with this.
It's a slam dunk hire then. Based on everything you just told me, absolutely. Gonna get a chance to really delve into his background prior to the show. I do want to point out
he also spent some time in college too, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. I wanted to also point out someone else has made a hire in that same division. I don't know how you say this dude's last name. You can help me with this.
I believe it's Dave Canales or Canales.
And I don't have the accent. He is taking the Carolina Panthers job.
This I think was more way out of left field because I didn't even know this guy interviewed for the job. He wasn't really on anybody's radar. But he managed to make Baker Mayfield look good again. and I think that was, to me, I feel bad because this isn't really anything to do with the guy. It's just, I think this more says something about the opening than about him, in the fact of a lot of these guys like Ben Johnson and some of the other Bobby Slowick, some of the other, hotshot coordinators that are on the list for head coaching jobs know and have been told by everybody, do not take a bad job just to get a job.
Right.
Because you don't want it, like you stay as a coordinator for the right position. And it really sounds like these dudes just don't want that job because of David Tepper. And
all I was gonna say without like beating a dead horse essentially on that topic was that I feel like this was gonna be a hire like that, because a lot of the more sustained dudes, as you just talked about, kind of adding to your point, I like that job needs me more than I need it right now, kind of, you know, in a manner of speaking, you know what I mean? That's literally what you just said. So it's like I feel like it was going to be that situation where, you know what, I really want to be a head coach. Let's give it a shot. I wish him. I mean, legitimately, without making a joke about it, I wish him luck. Seriously. I mean, what do you think, job?
No,
Seriously,
I mean,
it's a really big. I mean, it's a huge job, and I mean, there's only 32 of these jobs, right? Regardless of the situation, and my thoughts are, I no one's going to blame you if it doesn't go well, unless some chaotic things happen. But at the same time, if you turn it around, hey.
I mean, he could be good. Yeah, I mean, he spent a lot of time in the Seattle coaching staff. So I think that there's a potential for him to be decent. And I mean, he has a lot of experience with a well-run organization like Seattle, and so I think, I mean, I think there's a chance it works out, or at least it's one of those always in the mix, especially in a division like that where anybody can win it, at least for the next couple of years.
I will tongue-in-cheekly say, hey sir, welcome to the area. So I'd like to actually though,
also very funny that he went from like an intra-divisional rivalry like coaching hire like that.
That
reminds me of Hugh Jackson to the Browns.
I mean that's actually it's very much what it reminds
hopefully it doesn't go as bad as that.
I know you weren't implying that when you make that comparison just now. Do you want to delve into of the weeks? I don't have a whole lot.
We do have. I wanted to finish up some of these hirings.
I only say because we're getting kind of late. Yeah, go ahead.
We'll go quick here then. Speaking of our division though, Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan is going to be the next Tennessee Titans head coach.
That's right.
So interesting move there.
Has there been any movement or thoughts about Vrabel? Because right now I'm a little bit surprised.
No, that's the thing. Yeah. So Antonio Pierce to the Raiders and Gerard Mayer to the Patriots, as we talked about. So the only two openings left are the Seahawks and Commanders. And I mean, maybe Vrabel goes to the Commanders. It's possible. But it feels like no.
He could go to Seattle. I could see him in Seattle. They're a tough place.
He could. It's just that feels like Pete Carroll. I mean, it feels like a younger Pete Carroll.
I just think that I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy that Vrabel does not have a job.
Yeah. I mean, to me, Vrabel made sense in DC though. So I will see if that's the hire. However, those two jobs still being open tells me they're aiming for someone who's still in the playoffs. And so I think, probably one of those will be Ben Johnson.
That's true.
And so, yeah, I think both of those would be fits for Ben Johnson too. And so I think this could end up being a thing where Vrabel sits at home this year or something and waits for a better opening next year. I don't know.
Bring him into the Steelers. Sorry, bring it. Just make up a position. I mean.
Him. Well, maybe he'd be a DC somewhere. I don't know.
Give him a headset and let him do whatever he wants.
Yeah. It's just definitely odd. It's definitely odd. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's plenty of guys.
To be honest with you, because of some goodwill, I could see him landing wherever Belichick is too next year. If Belichick doesn't take a year off.
It also seems like Belichick might not get a job. I mean, between all the dudes that are left, I don't know who would pick Belichick over them.
That's true.
I mean, especially with so many question marks over, he's been bad the last 3 years without Tom. So it's like, I mean, especially for the.
He's also not getting as much good graces anymore once you actually strip away how good was Bill Belichick as a head coach without Tom Brady on the roster.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that like without
it's a losing record, is what I'm saying.
Are you willing to blow up your front office to give him control? Like, he's going to demand roster control and all this stuff that you're just not willing to give.
It just doesn't.
And so I think it's going to just kind of end with Bill sort of just floating away into the ether, and it just kind of sadly ending that way.
Or he just goes into the sunset. It might just be like, you know what, maybe it's time to just retire. Was that it?
Yeah, I think that was it for that. Yep.
Okay. I only really have two of the weeks because I got into the other stuff that I wanted to throw out here. What's the best way to put this? My upset of the week. You ready for this? My upset of the week is Doc Rivers getting another NBA job. Doc Rivers against the odds is actually, if you're not sure what I'm familiar with, The Milwaukee Bucks have hired Doc Rivers after firing their head coach middle of the season in January. It's almost the end of January, and we're doing this again. That's all I've got to say.
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, because that was my firing of the week.
Oh, okay.
Because you might be sitting here and saying, "Wait, hang on, I'm confused. Why did the Bucks fire their coach? Aren't they third in the league right now?" Yes, you're correct.
Yeah,
they randomly fired their head coach after sitting in third place in the league, with one of the best rosters. Yeah, apparently it was like behavioral issues with or I guess behavior problems with the front office and the head coach. And
wasn't it strange? Didn't they strangely fire their head coach over this past offseason, the guy who won the championship, and hired the guy who just got fired?
Well, no, they fired Mike Budenholzer at some point, but I think they were struggling at that point in time.
Okay.
But yeah, so apparently, hilarious fact, they're currently paying 3 head coaches, because they still have Budenholzer that they're paying for, and so they're still paying Griffith, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm.
And then now they're paying Doc Rivers. And so
my thing is
apparently they brought in Doc Rivers as some sort of coaching consultant like 2 months ago. And everybody in the ownership and front office liked him more, and so they just fired the coach.
So here's what my thing is. I'm starting to see the NBA more like the NHL in terms of being very hair trigger with coaching firings, because the season is so long. It's a marathon season, and because I really do believe that like basketball at times can be not in the same way as hockey, but maybe you just need a new voice. You need new vision. You need someone to come in and make a few tweaks, and that'll do it. And my thoughts are giving him, not making a joke about it and giving him the benefit of the doubt here. Rivers can do the job. He can do it. He'll get you through the season. You're not probably not going to win a title. And I just feel interested like clearly Doc Rivers has some say and people really like him across the league, because he's gotten so many chances and he's skated on one title with the Celtics. So
the
big 3 Celtics, right? That was his team, right? So I don't know. I just that was why I was like, hey, this would be humorous.
What was that? 14 years ago.
Long time. It was anything is possible. Kevin Garnett, shout out. But anyway, yeah.
I mean, I mean, the only thing you need to know about this hire is that there was recently an ownership acquisition in the Bucks by a certain individual by the name of Jimmy Haslam, and so that's all I need to know about why this guy got fired. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that?
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. Jimmy Haslam, I believe they're sort of like long-term angling to acquire maybe more. They have some minority ownership, and I don't know if they're angling to get majority at some point soon. But
you realize that's like the Haslams now to that point are in the vein of like the Cronkies in terms of how many teams that they are like own. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listeners, go look it up. The Kroenke family owns so many teams, not even all in the United States. Like they own Arsenal, they own the Rams, they own like 2 teams in Denver. It's a lot. And they're successfand is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
They've racked up titles at those locations. So anyway, and Haslam's been good with the crew at least, right? So anyway, interesting. I didn't know that, Casen. So thank you. Lesson of the week.
Yeah.
I got one more, and it's not in sports. Go ahead.
Okay. I just randomly found this tweet today that I like these stat breakdowns, and so this is my paycheck of the week. Hunter Renfrow, if anybody remembers who that is, he was famously like a balding white receiver at Clemson that was there for like 6 years, and he got drafted by the Raiders, and so everybody made the joke that he was like 45. And so
why you got to do him like that? Well, look, real quick, at a time when like everyone's got all these years of eligibility and you've got like 8-year players on these rosters, it's like, well,
he was the outlier in like 2017.
Yeah, before it was,
yeah. And so anyway, Hunter Renfrow if you've forgotten about him, yeah, it's because he, hasn't played very well for a very long time. But he got paid $16 million this year, and he ended the season with 25 catches for 255 yards. And so that comes out to be $646,000 per catch.
You know what? Good for him. That's awesome.
Get that bag, Hunter. Get that bag.
That is incredible. That's getting a bag right there. Good job, Hunter Renfrow. That's last laugh at all of the media if I've ever heard it. It's like, haha.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was probably a deal that was signed by Mayock. I would imagine that was probably like an extension.
There's like it reminds me. I don't remember his name, but it reminds me sort of like in the vein of one of my favorite stories. There was a like average NBA player who purposely found all of his like biggest critics like in fans and challenged them all to one-on-one and absolutely blasted all of them. 101. I gotta look that up. It's like, listen, if I'm an average NBA player, I'm incredible on the pickup court. Okay. So I gotta look that up. Maybe I'll have to find that for next week. I got one more of the week, and it's just simply because I've been a fan in the past, and I've just seen this joke. The King returns of the week. Jon Stewart's coming back to the Daily Show, at least up through the next election cycle. And regardless of where you lean politically, it's no denying that like there was, at least it was like when I was really early in college, when it was like him and Colbert, kind of going opposite each other on their respective shows. I mean, that was kind of a golden age of like the after work, after school comedy, like politically and legitimately. It was like satire on both, not satire, but jokes about both sides. I mean, it was. And I just found it cool that at a time when the Daily Show, obviously a more left leaning show, like essentially has been doing rotating guests. It's like every Monday, at least through the election cycle, we're gonna have Jon Stewart on. I just thought that was awesome. I was like, good, good for him. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to
say. I also, it's funny you brought that up because I apparently I think it was last week, the Colbert made a big deal on late night because they finally crossed
the Late Show.
The number of the Late Show. They finally crossed the number of episodes that they did of the Colbert Report.
Wow. That's cool.
And so now there has been more episodes of the Late Show with Colbert than there was with the Colbert Report, which to me just broke my brain because I was like, that was that long ago. Like, he's been on CBS for a long time now.
That is a long time, and all these guys talk to each other, right? So they'll have some cool guests and all that stuff. So yeah, that's that was the only thing. Just because we have a little show that we talk about news and such on and such in our own way. I was like, hey, that's cool to see. So anyway, yeah, is it time for Echo?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So I want to put a non-spoiler section in here. It's not going to be long, but you can timestamp it just for folks. People skip around and everything because I really think this show deserves it. So no spoiler warning. We'll notch that when we get to it. I thought this was a fascinating show. I really did. And I will be honest when I say that there was nothing in this that really blew me away or presented me with anything I haven't like really seen before. But I walked away from the show, non-spoiler, saying that if you are an MCU fan out there, Marvel fan, of which most people who listen to us are, Casen, you need to watch this show before we get into the street level anything going forward. I would say, like you need to for them to establish like the relationship and show more in terms of Wilson Fisk, and I think Maya is going to be an important character, but more or less to show kind of what Fisk is capable of and all about, because the reality of it is there's a lot of Daredevil out there, and it's 13 episodes a season, and there's 3 seasons of it, and I've seen it, but I think at a time when Marvel has been doing like the 8-9 episode thing and doing them weekly, it's a tall ask for your casual fans to go back to those shows, especially at a time when all this news is breaking left and right of all these old characters that are going to be in Born Again and all this stuff. Go watch Echo. It's 5 episodes. I got it done. That's the bulk of my, without heavy spoiler talk. I will say that without spoiling Well, actually, I'll let you rebuttal to that, Casen, first. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you just said. I think the biggest takeaway from this is I don't know if this was a conscious decision that they made or if they didn't even know what they had, but to me, this formula worked. They
Yeah,
absolutely under-promised and they really didn't talk about it and they over-delivered.
I would agree.
I mean, and that's been the biggest problem is that they were consistently over-promising and under-delivering for a lot of the big movies. I mean, I to me the biggest under-delivering of all time was Love and Thunder because like that it
Oh
just
yeah.
did not live up to expectations at all. And it just kind of it's been a trend. And so for them to just sort of say, all right, we know this is going to be niche. We know people might not care. So let's just not really market it a ton. Obviously, you kind of feel for people that are in it because they're not getting the exposure that they deserve. However, I would rather I mean, I'm not gonna, speak for her, but like for someone like Alicia Cox, like I would prefer her to get attention from people who
Alaqua.
will like it.
I think it's
Sorry, Alakwa.
no, you're good. You're good.
Cox.
Alaqua clocks. Yep.
I would, think that it would be better for her to get exposure from people who like it than just people who, might not and have, negative attention being thrown on that. Um, and so I think that it was the right formula of not really addressing it until it was about to come out and then not really showing much, not really promising a ton, and then have it drop and being like, "Oh,
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised. This is very cool."
One big drop. I think that they dropped it at a time when there's notoriously not a lot of good content out, either
Yeah.
in the theater or at times on the TV.
Mhm.
Due to the writer's strike, a lot of those shows are actually premiering in January. So normally
Yeah.
that is the case. That's been a lot. Like all of the sitcom stuff's all coming out like now because it would have come out in the fall.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
traditionally though, I thought they marketed it brilliantly. And I thought that once it was out, they pushed it really hard. Like, and they still are. Like they're
Yeah.
putting the stuff out. But I like that one big
Yeah.
thing where they're showing a little bit of the action. They're like 5 episodes, one big drop. You know what I mean? I thought I was like, I see what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
This is cool.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and so it's sort of you sort of just drop it and sort of see what people say,
Mm-hmm.
and then after the first weekend and the first week, and I believe people, I mean, mostly decent reviews from what I've seen. Then you say, okay, people are gonna like this. Then you push it.
And you
Like
know
you
what?
don't.
I want to backtrack something I said. In terms of like Marvel storytelling, there wasn't anything in this that blew my mind. Watch this show. I would recommend this show, not even for Marvel fans. Like the level of representation in this show is maybe unlike anything Marvel's ever done. And
Mhm.
I couldn't say that because last week I had only seen the first episode. Now, having gone through the whole thing, everything from just being deaf and sign language and having to speak that way to the Choctaw Nation and how brilliantly and beautifully done that was. I loved the thank you for. There's a thank you from my Marvel Studios to the Choctaw Nation uh, at the end of the series is the last card, and it's a representation. Like I would almost recommend this of like if you have a vague understanding of Marvel but you want to see something. So in that sense, it is showing me something I've never seen before, literally in a cultural sense, and I thought it was beautifully done. So go watch this show just for that. Honestly,
Mhm.
I mean, it was great. I mean, so very strong and so well done. And it was very obvious that they worked with the Choctaw Nation to do this, uh, and
Yeah.
seemingly filmed on location because they were like going through Oklahoma and
No, yeah, absolutely, and I think that as I mentioned last week, Alakwa and the director of the series are both natives, and so they both have that. Neither one of them are Choctaw specifically, but they knew how to approach it, and so I think that was done very well, and I give a lot of credit to them for probably leading the charge on making sure that was done well.
also,
Mhm.
I want to say this as well. I did go to their website by the way and checked out some of the stuff for Echo. This was after I finished the show today. They've got a nice they got like the Chiefs blog there on it and other stuff. People within the nation talking about the show and it's very cool. Definitely go check that out. I wanted to say, Alakwa Cox in this show is phenomenal. Like
Mhm.
just what she is able to convey just through sheer emotion. And let's face it, this isn't a spoiler. A lot of this show, the score is doing the heavy lifting. It's silent. You're reading because they're signing, and when people are talking to her and she's talking to other people, and the acting is having to be done. It's showing the chops, quite frankly, of these actors. And she was great. And one of the things I was thinking going into this when I heard that they were going to do an Echo show was, did they show enough of her to get people like really caring about this character and Hawkeye to do this, quite frankly. And I think if they had done it in the traditional way where it wasn't as gritty and stuff like that, it may not have necessarily gone as well. Every creative decision they made helped this a lot, like tremendously. Is the best way I can put it. No spoilers. So I'm ready to get into spoilers, but if you have any more non-spoiler, you can.
No, yeah. I mean, the only thing I'll say is I absolutely agree. Go watch it. And spoilers.
Spoilers. All right, and we'll give it the rating system at the end, which we'll give it at the end. So yeah, I saw this. I watched this whole thing, and I actually finished it up. I was actually able to finish it up essentially in the last 24 hours. Liked it a lot. I will say, I wondered, there was a theory I had from the first episode, and I wondered if they were going to do it. And I think it's one of the more creative decisions MCU's ever had. Each episode was named after an ancestor of hers. And it was showing you their story, right? And it's like Tuklo, Kafa, all their names. And I thought to myself, are they going to tell me that like these are all like her past family members who had this like ability or whatever, something like that? It didn't go quite like that, but essentially that is what they were showing. And throughout time, I'll be honest, sports guy in me, I loved the lacrosse scene. I loved seeing the traditional lacrosse, of which a lot of people don't realize that lacrosse goes back to the natives. It's one of those sports that was played very similarly to how it's played today, interestingly enough. And I thought that was very tastefully awesome. That scene was awesome. I backed that scene up to like watch it again. I liked it so much. But that was great. This isn't going to be a flyby of the episodes, by the way, either. I'm just going to
I thought it was very interesting how she was like, she was like collecting her ancestors' abilities like Infinity Stones, and like she was like, oh, this one with the ability to just summon strength, and the one that was a hunter, and just all this other stuff. Very interesting. Thought that was kind of neat.
I liked the dynamic. I want to talk about all this first because I will obviously get to Kingpin, but I thought the dynamic of her family was cool. I liked that she comes back and everyone's basically on her side, right? Like they're like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, some of them are like, Miles around, we got, I haven't seen her in a while.
I mean, I would counter and say that I think a lot of people were mad she ever left.
We're mad that she never came, but I think she explained well by the end of the series where it's like, yeah, but y'all could have come to see me. Like your grandmother and others.
Well, yeah, I think that she purposefully stopped talking to them because I think that she probably didn't think that they wanted to talk to her.
Well, also the grandmother basically admitted, like, I walked away from your father, not you. It's like, well, you're in Oklahoma, she's in New York, so who's growing up without whom here? It almost makes you, it definitely takes you in one of those situations of her life would have been completely different if she had just stayed there and he went. Like her life would have been significantly better, quite frankly, than it's turned out. Because one huge thing I have with this series that goes back to something you addressed last week, where the director and others were like, she's not like good or whatever. I felt like every action Maya made in this show, in this miniseries, she made not necessarily for the greater good, but her immediate survival. Is that fair to say? Like, literally, she didn't really, not up and even till the last fight scene. The only reason she even went back is because Kingpin was now threatening the entire nation and her family.
Yeah, I think that she's not like a baddie driven by a goal. She's more just like focused on herself. Like I think to an extent,
almost.
Yeah. I think like we saw that later on in the last showdown with Kingpin, or in the showdown with Kingpin, where he like begs her to kill him, that like that she thought about, and she had the conversation too, is that she's thought about Queenpin, and that's something
Yeah.
that she has thought about, and so it's not, I don't know, like partially, I guess, like world domination type of aspirations,
Right.
but
You're right.
only because that's all she knows.
Right. And I feel like at the like from the very last scene where she's walking to like the little picnic, right, with the
Yeah.
family. Like when I see her in that very final scene and they cut the black, I think to myself, not so much necessarily a redemption story, but like there's the beginning of one potentially here. Like
I think she's a very interesting anti-hero.
yeah,
In the fact of like, I mean, I don't even know if you would say that, but like it's just, she's a very interesting, like, I guess, villain, in the perspective of like, you know that she knows what's right and probably deep down wants to be right and wants to be good, but she was raised from such a young age to be like, she was in like kindergarten being picked up by Kingpin.
yeah. I
And so it's
mean,
just kind of like
yeah,
you saw her being basically brainwashed and raised in this environment of brutality. But also that's just how she is. Like we saw the scene with the ice cream man in the alley where she kept kicking him after Kingpin already basically killed the guy. And then we saw the scene where she killed the bird just because she wanted to. Like
but
she has a dark side.
that was
Yeah,
well
yeah,
before
yeah,
Kingpin. That was when she was still with
yeah.
their mom. That's true. That's true.
And
Yes.
so we see that there are seeds of her basically being, I mean, I guess just evil. Like there are
You,
scenes of her having an evil side to her.
but it is survival because honestly, great springboard here, Casen. They kind of showed that with the ancestors as well. They
Yeah.
showed that, like, for the most part, the ancestors were doing what they had to for the circumstance, right? Like
Hmm.
every single one of them had a situation, like take the lacrosse situation. You realize if we lose this game, they're going to banish us off our land, right? Yeah, I understand. Then they win it, obviously. The like, I forget what they're called, the light riders,
Hmm.
the light horsemen, I believe is what they were called. That whole thing with Tuklo, I believe was the name. Like again, doing bad things for the greater good. You know what I mean? It's like like there's that kind of element with all of them, right? And so for them all to come together at the end, and she's able to essentially give everyone related to her
Yeah.
her ability. It's
I
interesting,
I
you know?
think I think the main thing that I think the series was trying to show was that she had these, um I guess you could say, dark tendencies and thoughts
Yeah,
and desires, and her mom was the one that filtered them into pure intentions.
yeah,
And after her mom died, that guardrail was
was
removed,
gone. Yeah,
and it was her dad and Kingpin who basically just let it go wild. And I think this show
really nurtured it to get
was
worse.
essentially
Yeah,
her learning how to tamper that back down and guide her, I guess, desires into a productive thing.
yeah.
I think is really more or less what it was supposed to be about.
I agree. I will. That's a very good way to convey kind of what I was trying to say. And quite frankly, I will say this: they certainly made Maya interesting as a character because I am very interested to see like where she'll pop up next because, and I hope she wants to do more stuff because.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to talk about a few things about regarding Wilson Fisk. For a lot of people, this might be their first introduction to Wilson Fisk, and there were times when I felt he was a little too comic booky in Hawkeye, but that was actually his introduction to the MCU, so I kind of forgave it. This show, I was looking for the no. I want to see them show people who may not have seen Daredevil how evil this dude is, how actually terrifying he is, because they've said big talk, but they've said they want him to be the street level Thanos, and I'm over here like I don't think you guys realize that to scale, he could be worse. Like just as a comic book reader myself, like to scale, he could actually be worse because the thing about Thanos is greater good kind of thing. Wilson, and even then, he only messed with you if you had to. Wilson Fisk will actually find out what makes you tick and do anything to you to get you to comply. You know what I mean? Including someone like Maya at the end. I mean, what he was, we don't need to say what the actions are, but what he was prepared to do at the end, like literally right in front of her, up to and including the guys in the van. You know what I'm talking about? We're essentially about to go out to the pow pow. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is how evil this dude is. You know what I mean? And brilliantly played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Every scene with him was great. I already knew that was going to be the case. I thought Kingpin was in this show about as much as he needed to be. The other little tidbit, kind of off the violence, I liked the little eye thing to where he could speak and the signing just happened. I thought I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's fascinating. But I'll let you rebuttal to that because I want to say one more thing about Kingpin. But
yeah. I mean, I think that this the scenes between Fisk and Maya really expertly portrayed their relationship.
Yeah.
And I mean there were a lot of flashbacks too, and we saw their Sunday dinners back as I guess when he was sort of grooming her to be his apprentice or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that then when he comes back and he's just like, here's this device thing that will sign for me. And I've seen some of the people mention about how it shows that he doesn't care enough
right
to learn.
Exactly.
Like he had an interpreter, which excellent show of how that happened, of how that ended.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more eye-raising moments of the entire show for me. I was like, oh wow, okay. Like, okay,
yeah,
got it. Continue.
And
no, but she called him out on that, by the way. I was gonna say that. And that got him really mad, right? That was one of his triggers. Right?
Yeah. And so it's just definitely what it shows who he is as a person. And he wants everybody to give him what he wants without really going the extra mile himself. And yeah, I mean, it's just he's an evil guy.
He's very evil and very scary. Which is why I'm glad you said that, because I don't know how to interpret how things ended between the two of them. I don't know really what I think Maya was trying to have the same positive effect, like, hey, let it go, like trying to make him play it out, which Kingpin's backstory is in the first season of Daredevil. If nothing else, I would encourage anyone who is interested to go and at least watch that episode. I want to say it's like 8 or 9, but essentially you get the gist of it. He basically said it as much. But the thing is, in the show, but the thing is, like, I'm wondering kind of where they go from here, because I essentially interpreted that as she was trying to help him and he was just rejecting it. That's essentially how I interpreted it. But he's like messed up at the end of that. He's like not really sure what just happened. Like, what'd you do to me? And it got to the point where even his guys were like, sir, let's get out of here because we're really no match for them. In that moment, after they just cleared the room. I
think that it was great because it really showed that she was probably willing to go back with him if he would just be a better person. And if he would be the person that she thought that he was or wants him to be, she would be more inclined. Because I mean, for context, this is essentially like her second father. Like she's known him since she was 6.
Yeah.
And especially after the loss of her dad, which, I mean, she knows now he did and orchestrated, but for that time period after she lost her dad, he was her father and the father figure in her life. And so there is so much emotion built up there for the value that she places on that relationship.
Right.
That if there's anything she can do to get back to the way it was, I think she would have been willing to do it. But that moment when he just didn't listen to her and wouldn't do it is when she realized that just needed to be there was no going back.
He's done. And that brings us to the post-credit scene, which I wanted to directly address right here on the show for people who've seen it. I thought, first of all, I thought that was one of the very most brilliantly written scenes in the MCU. Maybe not ever, but like among MCU's subtle scenes, I thought that was really, really a strong post credit scene because he's kind of contemplating. He's not saying much, but then he's just watching them talk about the mayor race, right? And I'm like, he's just not saying anything. He's just taking it all in. Like they need an outsider. They need a bare knuckle brawler. They need a guy who's going to come in and do like all this talking head speak, right? And he's just fixated on it and leaning forward. And then they cut to black. And I was like, that was brilliant. I'm sure you loved it too. Because I was like, oh my goodness. Now, I want to just throw this out there. There have been rumblings that whether it's going to be, I think it's going to be a piece of the Daredevil Born Again series. And it sounds like it's also going to potentially bleed into the next Spider-Man movie and anything ground level they go to. Daredevil, if you're not familiar out there, folks, has two of the greatest graphic novels really in Marvel's catalog, of which I have both of them. And I've read them both. I love Daredevil a lot, as I've talked about on this show, and I can't wait to talk to you more about when we get that show, Casen. But Daredevil Born Again is one of them, namesake of this show. Daredevil Born Again's story was essentially adapted into Daredevil season 3. Okay, that's all I'll say. I won't spoil anything about what it's about. You can go look at it up on your own if you want, or just watch the show. That's another option. Devil's Reign is the one that's recent, and it is about the direct conflict of Kingpin becomes mayor of New York and all that transpires. And it was one of those Marvel events where every single story for like a year had something to do with that, because Marvel's just always done that perfectly in their comics, you know, the continuity of it. But Daredevil's actual run during that time was called Devil's Reign. And it looks like, it's like, oh, wow, we got Daredevil Born Again. Like Daredevil Born Again, the show, is probably going to have a lot to do with Devil's Reign, which has me very excited in terms of where they're going to pull from. You know what I mean? And yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they've thrown the whole thing out and like are essentially starting over. and both D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox have both said, "Oh yeah, it's way better." Like, this is going to be way better because they care. You know, this cast cares. They all care. They all put 100% into it. And I don't know. I'm excited, but that's what I wanted to address because a lot of people don't know that, and I would be one of the people who'd have the knowledge of that. Devil's Reign, it is so good. and we might be getting it. So
yeah. I mean, it absolutely. And I think that definitely we're heading in the direction of you know, Mayor Kingpin. And that's gonna be very scary.
Gonna be very, very scary. I won't talk at all about what actually happens in Devil's Reign because, quite frankly, at this point, it could be a spoiler. So, yeah, for anyone who might want to read the book or any of that, but use your imagination, folks. You know, it's the kind of thing that all you got to do is think about it for 5 seconds and think, oh boy, we got to assemble everyone and stop this.
Yeah.
But anyway, that being said, I love that go a lot. What would you rate it? So our system: bronze, silver, gold, vibranium. I was thinking about this a lot today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to be like a prisoner of the moment of when I watched it. And I'm trying to be objective about it. But I think, I mean, I think I really do have to give it vibranium for the sole reason of how little they had to work with as far as like a random like street level side character that wasn't even the main villain of that, like Maya, who like the character of Maya as far as like being like sort of like a side villain of Hawkeye, they managed to turn into an actual show and add so much depth to the character and the way that they did it. And so I give it vibranium for the execution. I mean, I would say the show in and of itself is probably more in the gold level, but I will bump them up for it being executed so well on, everything that they were able to do with what they had to go on.
I will herald everything you just said, my friend, and I will say that for me it was like right on the borderline until I really thought hard about one main thing. I was between gold and vibranium. That's the borderline it was on for me. Um, I also give it vibranium because of everything you literally just said. I echo I pun intended, echo everything you just said. But I will also say they managed to take a series in this way about a very obscure character and actively add to the reason I loved Daredevil. Does that make sense? Not just the
Yeah.
Kingpin stuff, but why I loved Daredevil and why I thought like just the scale of what was going on in Hawkeye, even with Clint and Kate, was so good because it's like they're showing that even on the ground level here, these people who are like in Hawkeye's case, not really superpowered, but they showed they're building out this part of the MCU and they
I
managed to add another great chapter to it. And
maybe you can. I mean, I haven't read a ton of like comic books or whatever, so maybe you can have an opinion on this.
sure,
But to me, this felt like the best literal like visual representation or like film movie representation of an actual comic book storytelling. Like it felt like plucking a random character, making it into a really interesting show, and then ending on a really interesting we'll see, next time. Like a really interesting cliffhanger. Like, you know
yeah,
what I mean?
I do know what
Like
you mean.
it felt like such a comic book storytelling methodology done well.
It
It,
it feels like, especially the way you consumed it, but also basically I consumed it. When it went off today, I felt like I had just finished the fifth chapter of a mini graphic novel series, right? Where each episode was like the panels, right? I
Mhm.
can absolutely agree with you. Now I will say, I felt the same way when I went back and watched Hawkeye from start to finish in 2 days. Okay,
Oh
like
yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah.
in other words, I want to see more of these little spotlights where they say, you know what, we got 6 episodes, bam, here's the whole thing. And
Hmm.
maybe echoes the kind of level scale character to do it with, right? Maybe you don't want to do that with like your B-listers, C-listers, A-list. I don't even know. Who knows what Maya would be at this point? Probably not even a D-lister. Um, but regardless of that, uh,
Well, either
yeah,
way,
either
Hawkeye
way.
is the same thing because it's the same. It's Maya
Mm-hmm.
from Hawkeye. Like it's the same thing, and I loved Hawkeye's storytelling for that reason too. Of like let's just take the least powerful Avenger and tell this weird week that he had in New York
Yeah,
City
it's like
with some random college student that he met. Like it's such a it's a very
yeah,
interesting story, and the way that they did Hawkeye was great. And so this is the this is the formula that works.
this
And
is the wheelhouse.
I hope that they like figure that out and realize that like this is how you do it. And so when they start doing more stuff with these characters, like I hope that they let the people involved in these shows dictate how those are done. Like,
You want to know? You want to know one other thing that I've noticed, and I was thinking about this a couple days ago, but I just want to say it because you've brought this up. One of the things that helps in terms of making it really feel like a comic book story is when the next episode begins literally where the last one just ended. Because not
yeah.
all of the Marvel shows have quite done that. I thought Loki did a pretty masterful job of it. I thought Secret Invasion did a poor job of it. Like it really
Hmm.
felt like you're dropping in after some stuff has happened. It doesn't help when Fury
Yeah.
has to go from one location to another country and stuff like that. But Hawkeye, it's like the scene just continues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This show, basically that, you know, and it feels like, that's one of my favorite things when you read a comic book or you read like a story like that, or even just a book, right? You like for you that for us as the audience, for the character, no time's passed. You know what I mean? So it's like
Hmm.
you're actually, so it really gives you like a window into like, oh, this is a moment of time in their life. I've also heard people, other readers like myself, that kind of like that the around the table discussion in a comic shop, right? I love those conversations. That maybe that just works better with grounded level characters. And I said, well, I don't know, man. I've read some X-Men stories I think do it really well too. like like it's just that this is a week in a life of Logan at the X Mansion. You know what I mean? This is what his week looks like, or whatever. He's got to go do a thing and then come back. Like, I think it can be done with any character so long as that is taken into account. Like, there are some stories where that is the benefit. I think films are that way. You got to have some time pass in between. Shows and comics, I've always said, show me exactly what happens next, straight up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's another little nugget for you.
yeah, and I mean,
So it's cool you said that.
And I think I mentioned
we both gave it vibranium. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised we agreed on that. So it's cool. That's cool,
dude. It's awesome. I will also just point out we have given all of the special like Marvel things, like the specials and the spotlights. We've given them all vibranium. By the way, like there's only been like 3. We both Christmas special for Guardians, Werewolf by Night, and now this we gave vibranium. So they're doing something really right with this kind of vein of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think I mentioned it last week, but like my favorite shot in the show, I don't know if you could guess what it was.
You did mention that.
I said it was like probably the brutalest shot.
Oh yeah, you said kind of off recording that like there was a really rough shot. I mean, was it when they showed the Kingpin's fists?
No, it was basically when the guy just shot the dude that held him captive in the bowling alley.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And then they shot, you just fell back. Yeah. That was just a really well done
from their perspective, because they showed it that way. Yeah, that was pretty violent. That was one of the things I was going to talk to you about. Like even before the show, it's like some of these things we don't have to exactly say what happened. We can just fly.
Yeah,
but no, that I know what you're talking about. I always liked anything with like Kingpin wearing a white suit, because he'll just lose his mind, and of like he's just covered and he has that thing of like, I need a new jacket. I don't want Maya to. Oh, and she sees it. You know, again, another great written scene. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I did that. But I will say there was nothing. I will go ahead and say this. I give the show credit. There was nothing in here that was violent for violence sake. In other words, they didn't like. I thought they were going to do a thing, and I won't say what I thought they were going to do. You can reach out to me, whatever. But it felt real. It felt grounded. It felt realistic to convey the danger. It didn't feel like, oh, this is just gory for the sake of it. No, it didn't feel that way. Daredevil never felt that way either. So
the violence was done to portray the brutality of the characters.
Right.
That was the vibe, and it was important. I mean, it's in the introduction to this Kingpin universe. It's important to really get off on a level of like, oh, okay, so we're doing that.
Yeah. I've told you before on this show and just in life. I'm not really a fan of any horror genre. I'm not really a big fan of horror movies. I like, though, when horror elements are used to tell the story. It's probably why I love Stranger Things so much. There's elements of horror in there, but that's not always the focus, right? So, and before anyone accuses, yes, there are horror movies I like. There are some that I consider actually masterpieces in the way they're done. So I appreciate the genre for what it is. I felt that's how the violence was in this show. So that's all I got, man. That was a loaded show.
Yeah. Let me just check in.
2 hours.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah. I was just checking to see if there's any news that we missed. Yeah. So I think that's it. We talked a lot. Had a lot to talk about, but I think that was great. I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as I did. I was afraid we were going to have a little bit of a disagreement, but I'm really glad we were able to talk about a really great show.
No, and it might have a little bit of recency bias, but really the more I think about it, the more I've enjoyed it. It's the opposite effect that Secret Invasion has had on me.
Yeah.
Where the immediate aftermath, I was not happy, and since then it's just not gotten better in my mind. I really think this was a huge W that Marvel needs to learn from, and I think they will. So that's it. Enjoy championship weekend out there, everybody. We always appreciate you. Thank you all again so much for watching, listening, however you consume. Casen, any final thoughts, my friend?
I mean, I don't really have anything else to say beyond beyond I hope the Lions win, but I don't think they will. That's about all I can say on that one.
Out of the 4 teams left, they're the team that I'm hoping wins the Super Bowl. But
Mhm.
enjoy championship Saturday, Sunday, and we'll be here to see what happens. It's gonna be something. In that case, this is Kellan,
This is Casen.
and we'll see you as always at the next stop.